Okay, hi. Welcome everybody to the Candidate Forum live stream. It's going to be happening every Thursday at 6:30 where you can kind of hang out with us, chat with us, ask questions. So today it's just me, Lana Leguía, running for District 24, and Vic Kaplan. As a lot of you already know, he's running for governor. So I want to start out with kind of just campaign updates. What have you been doing? What have I been doing this week? So go ahead, Vic. What have you been up to this week?
So yes, I've been collecting signatures this week for myself. I've also uh, visited a middle school in Reddington where I presented my candidacy to students. And this weekend, I plan to attend the two street fairs, uh, and one in Middlesex County, the other one in Essex County. So that's my plan for the rest of the week. So I do intend to talk to voters, talk to people in those two places this weekend, and yeah. So I'm definitely planning to have a continue planning to have an active campaign.
So I went to that same middle school last year when I was running for federal office, and I thought that I was really impressed with the whole setup and how in tune the kids were with politics and current events. Did you experience the same thing where were the kids asking interesting questions?
Yeah, I would say there were there were certain questions that I was not aware of. Some of the environmental questions about I think one student asked about the bacteria that I was not aware of, but the questions were definitely interesting, and they were based they were definitely what I would not expect of students of that age. You know, they were middle school students, but quite a number of them were actually quite in depth. But hope that I was able to answer all of the questions. And yeah, I would say that the response from students was positive. You know, they got to hear about where I stood on issues, and I think one of the students asked how was different from the Republicans. So I gave that response. I don't think that anyone looking at my platform would. Even well, when it comes to my position on taxes, would confuse me with a Republican. Certainly
Well,
not.
Republicans claim that they
Right.
want to lower taxes or eliminate them, but then they never do, right? So that's
Right.
probably where
That's
the
true.
confusion comes from.
Right. Yes. Well, of course, a lot of my other issues don't align with the Republican Party at all, and I think that so I can understand why some people get confused because some of my other positions they're definitely not aligned with the Republican Party. So yeah, I thought it was quite a positive feedback from students. Uh, I was asked, why I wanted to. Yeah, basically what my position was on the minimum wage, and I think one question was about the what is my stance on women's issues, women's rights rather, and so I gave my response, and I was referred to another person who was speaking before the students and who gave a response that has to do that well had to do with women making the decisions about their own bodies, and as opposed to my response, which was the government should not be involved and taxpayers should not be funding something that they view as murder. So I'm sure my response was different than from the responses that some of the other candidates have given in the past.
Oh, that's good. Did you feel like the kids already knew what a libertarian was? I know you had that question that they were like, "Well, what's the difference
Yeah,
between you and a Republican?"
I think well, I mean, I was told that Lana, that you were actually the only other libertarian that ever spoke in that classroom. So I think they've gotten some general idea about what libertarian was. I explained what it meant to be a libertarian, and so no one really tried to kind of ask any questions that I would say were sort of negative or trying to let me get you or anything of that sort. They were really all informative questions, and I was quite impressed
Mhm.
uh, with the questions the students have asked. I mean, they were definitely in depth, and uh, I they were quite interesting. So yeah, no, I was quite impressed with the two groups.
Yeah, I know what the purpose of it was to make like a candidate, a mock candidate forum to kind of give the kids an impression of what it's like when you start voting and how you should be vetting candidates. But I took that opportunity to teach them all what a libertarian was, even though I probably wouldn't do that in an actual candidate forum. But I think it's important that kids at a young age understand, and before they get just compounded with all this propaganda about the two-party system. But there are other candidates. There's the Green Party. There's the Conservative Party. There's the Constitutionalist. There's the Libertarian Party. If they learn that at a younger age, once they reach the age when they start voting, they'll start looking into more than just the two candidates. So you didn't say
Yeah, no.
where these tabling events are going to be this weekend.
Oh yes. So one of them is going to be in Woodbridge, and the other one is in Maplewood. That one on Saturday is going to be in Woodbridge, and the one on Sunday is going to be in Maplewood. And you can find all that information on my website at vicforliberty.com.
And so you're collecting signatures. How's that going? Do
Yeah.
you
So
feel
I've
like people are? Go ahead.
yeah. So we've collected over, well, so far it's over 1,000. So the number is going to be growing. There's still about a month to collect more signatures. I would say that people are overall receptive. I was collecting signatures yesterday in front of ShopRite, and there were quite a number of people that were receptive. And I would say that the overall the attitude is, let's have more choices, let's have more uh, opportunities. Everyone deserves a chance, sort of deal. So people have been quite open to signing my petition. Of course, I give them information about my campaign, and that it has been a positive experience. I really enjoy doing that, and I plan to do this weekend the same, meeting with the voters and telling them about my campaign when they ask questions. Overall, voters have been quite, viewing a number of my position quite positively. I think one of the persons I was talking to yesterday was really curious about, how we survive without a state income tax, and I was telling him that there are other ways to fund the government, and we did not have a state income tax before 1976. The 8 states, besides New Jersey, also don't have a state income tax, and they're managing just fine. And the property taxes, most of them are lower than in New Jersey. I mean, all of them are lower than New Jersey. We have the highest property taxes in the country, of course. So a lot of the responses that I get are quite positive, and so at least people start thinking about issues that they never thought about. How can we exist without a state income tax? We've had, I know, state income tax for such a long time. I think there are people who remember how things were before 1976. They of course are fully aware that it's possible not to have a state income tax, but some of the other people, they may not realize that we haven't always had a state income tax, and letting them know that there are other states that don't have a state income tax, and they're managing without it. That's certainly, I think I'm giving them something to think about for sure.
Yeah, I'm also, unfortunately, Dustin, who's running for District 8, couldn't join us tonight, but we all have very, very similar platforms. We all want to repeal the income tax, and I think you probably experienced this as well. But when I collect signatures, what people actually are responding the most positively to, because yes, when you tell them about repealing the income tax, they say, "How's that work?" Or, you know, they'll just raise property taxes, or, well, how are we going to pay for anything? And then you have to kind of explain, but they sometimes have a negative response until you talk to them for a few minutes. But what I've been getting a positive response from the get-go is the tiny homes thing, and kind of rolling back some of these zoning laws and these laws that prevent people from buying property and being able to build on their private property. A lot of people aren't aware how hard it is to build on property in New Jersey, and I've personally experienced this. And so they make it super, super difficult with zoning laws and other laws preventing building. on top of environmental laws, federal and state environmental laws protecting water and all these other things, but even buying a house. So you decide, okay, I'm not going to buy land and build a house. I'll just buy one that already exists. Well, the medium housing price in New Jersey is over $500,000. So how are you supposed to get a house in New Jersey, right? So people do respond really positively, at least in my experience when I talk to them, to that, because they're aware. It's not a secret. It's very, very hard to exist in New Jersey and have your own home and have your own property and buy groceries and afford kids and all these other things that regular folk want to do.
Absolutely, yeah. I've had also positive feedback, and this is kind of across the ideological spectrum. People are welcoming the idea of having an affordable house that many people can't afford. Certainly, the cost of housing in New Jersey has been skyrocketing, and as one of the reasons why plenty of people find New Jersey unaffordable, and a number of them have left the state. I mean, I've met a number of people in Pennsylvania and other places who have originally lived in New Jersey and just found New Jersey not affordable, and that's why they've left. So anything that can be done to make it more affordable for people to stay here is what I support, and it certainly does include tiny homes, and it does include making also healthcare more affordable. Certainly, getting rid of the state income tax. Think that that would reduce property taxes, and that would also make it more affordable for people of New Jersey to stay here. And I think all those things are possible. And I think it's great that Lana, you and I, we both are, as well as Dustin, and giving
Bruno.
choices to people. Bruno, right, as well, my lieutenant governor candidate as well. Yes, of course, are talking to voters and are giving them other options, and certainly something to think about. At a minimum, I'm sure that I can speak for others that I'd like to see some of these ideas be implemented in the state of New Jersey. Win or lose, at least that is one of the goals. And certainly, if this would become the topic of a conversation for more people, perhaps some of these ideas will be implemented into law. That's the goal.
And just as a reminder to the audience that we do have, please feel free to type in your questions into the chat, and we'll answer them if you have specific questions for me or Vic or both of us. But to your point, I was just talking to someone today who found out that I'm with the New Jersey Libertarian Party, and he got super excited, and he was like, "We need more options. We need more parties. I'm tired of the two parties. I'm tired of everything being bipartisan." And they're just, he said this to me, I didn't have to explain it to him, that like the parties just argue with each other and that's it. They just perpetuate their own existence and make it seem like everything that's wrong with the world is the fault of either the Democrats or Republicans. And you've experienced this, I'm sure. I get, every time something comes up that overlaps with the Democrats or liberals, I get called those words. Like with immigration, I've been called a Democrat I don't know how many times, and I have to tell them, no, I'm a libertarian. We just happen to agree on that one thing. And they're like, no, you have to be a Democrat because it's the Democrats' fault that we have all these immigrants here, yada, yada, yada. So people are really, really suffering from the propaganda of the two-party system, for sure.
No, I appreciate your input, Lana. No, absolutely, I totally agree. I mean, it's interesting how people try to pigeonhole certainly libertarians, but then of course they look at some of the other positions. It seems to me that they really want to pigeonhole you with the positions, of course, they don't agree with, and totally ignoring that the other positions are actually not even in line with the other political party. So, I mean, I don't see certainly when it comes to the Democrats, when it comes to the whole immigration issue. I mean, I use the argument of the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, that does not list immigration as one of the powers of Congress. I mean, how many Democrats do you see using that argument? I mean, saying that, well, the essentially that federal government has no jurisdiction over immigration under the U.S. Constitution. I've never heard any Democrat say that before. So, but that is a position actually I've held for quite a while. I mean, this is not something that I just came up with now that Trump is president. I've believed this for over 20 years. I could not find the word immigration in the Constitution, over 20 years ago when I ran, back 20 years ago before, and I still can't find it today. So I understand that of course, Supreme Court has granted those powers to Congress, but those powers are just not there. And they use the justification, of course, of commerce and foreign policy as though people are just a bunch of, I don't know, cattle or chairs or whatever other products that people sell. They're human beings, and the Constitution is clear. I really do believe that if James Madison wanted the federal government to be in charge of immigration, it would have been specifically put in there, but it hasn't. The other part, of course, is that the federal government has made such a huge mess out of the immigration policy that I don't know even where to begin. Made it so much more complicated than it should have been, and the policies that they have instituted have actually led to more undocumented immigrants in the United States, not less. And then, of course, instead of solving quote unquote problem that they themselves created, then they just decided to have more deportations instead of not supporting the policies that have created more undocumented immigrants. And I'm talking, of course, about making it impossible to get legalized through the employer and through family members. And that, of course, has led to more people staying in the United States instead of leaving. And then once they saw that, it's like, well, this is a problem. Let's have more deportations. I honestly think that the best way to resolve it now that, I don't see this is a federal responsibility, is to have employers invite people from other countries, pay for their travel, pay for the training, have private organizations provide support for immigrants. I mean, we actually have had this in the United States before. I mean, this is nothing new. I know that a number of people have come to the United States back, in the 70, 80 years ago, and there were private organizations even back then providing assistance to the immigrants that came here, that would sponsor them, provide them funding, money so they would get housing. None of this has to involve using tax dollars for supporting immigrants. There's no need to. I understand that on a state level, some of them have used Medicaid and whatnot, but for the people that come here, there's absolutely no need to use tax dollars for them to live here. And I would say that's actually one of the many examples where I don't agree with the Democrats, because I don't believe that tax dollars should be used to fund immigrants coming here. I mean, I think that when they come here after being invited, there's really no need to use tax dollars. And actually, I think what it does do is that it just gives one more reason for people who don't want more immigrants to complain about how, why is my tax money is being used for this and that. But I mean, ultimately, the fact that a lot of these people who favor deportations are against making it easier for immigrants to come to the United States, because the only way you can come to the United States is either through family members, through a working visa, and that's pretty much it. And which is why it takes years for someone who wants to come to the U.S. to come to the U.S. The fact that they do not want to ease that up, while they say that, well, everyone should be coming here legally. Well, because of what you're supporting, there are more undocumented immigrants because it's so difficult legally to come to the United States.
Yeah,
And
like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
one of the things that I get a lot is, well, if you love immigrants so much, why don't you sponsor one? And the truth is, it's very hard to sponsor an immigrant for a work visa or even marriage. I'm hearing that people who go in for interviews, couples that are trying to get their spouses legally here in the country, the interviews are now turning into very, very invasive interrogations. So they're making it more difficult to come here legally. So I don't know what they expected. But to your point about the Constitution, a lot of people, this happened when Roe v. Wade was overturned too. They think that if you support the Constitution being upheld, then you must support or be against whatever that thing is. But people forget that the first question you need to be asking is the role of government, like, is this the job of the government to be involved with? Does the federal government need to be involved in abortion decisions? Does the federal government need to be involved in immigration? You should also be asking that of your state government and your local governments. That's the first question you need to be asking yourself. And majority of the time, the answer is no. They don't need to be involved in this. In the case of abortions, it's a decision of the woman, the family, the doctor, whoever, not the state, whether they can be involved. And when it comes to immigration, it's not enumerated in the Constitution. So no, we already have that answer.
Absolutely. Of course, I completely, well, I know preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
But it is true though, and totally agree with you. And why all these people that support deportations, why don't they don't do something about that 1996 law that Bill Clinton signed into law with bipartisan support? Of course, the purpose of the law was to restrict the number of undocumented immigrants, and all it did, it just led to more of them staying, and because they're no longer able to become legal. So all these, so the federal government just compound all these problems, and the majority of the undocumented immigrants are completely peaceful. I mean, what you see on the Fox News channel and from some of the other people that just sheer propaganda. If you think about it logically too, of course, if you're an undocumented immigrant, the last thing you would want to do is to break the law, and so that you would be you would get deported. I mean, most of them don't do that, and the statistics show that. Most of them do not commit murder or burglary or any of the sort that certain people like to focus on. But this would be like you could do the same thing with legal immigrants. Pick a bunch of people that legal immigrants have killed, and so look at all these people that were killed by legal immigrants, and this is why we should not have any legal immigration to this country too. So I mean, where do you?
Right.
The most people that are killed, are killed by people who are born in this country. That's the number one group. So what do we do about those people? Should we also deport them out of the United States?
Some people would say yes, but that's the problem with the two-party propaganda. Is in either direction they're tugging at your heartstrings. Oh, look at these families that are being torn apart, babies being deported. Oh, but look at the murderers and rapists and drug lords and whatever. And the question is none of that is actually relevant, right? Because that is handled by the court systems with crime and all of that. But the question is, does the government need to be involved? And they don't. It's the same thing when we talk to people about repealing income tax or cutting taxes in general. They say, well, how are we going to pay for these programs that feed people and house people and take care of people and give them medical care? Is that the role of the government? It isn't. We have charitable organizations that do this. But speaking of campaign updates, you and I were at the ICE protests on Tuesday, and that was very interesting. So I'm going to play a video about the update for today with the mayor of Newark. Add this to this
A mugshot and fingerprints were taken of Newark Mayor Ras Baraka Thursday morning following his first appearance in court for the trespassing charge. Baraka went before a judge in federal court 6 days after his arrest outside Delaney Hall, an ICE detention center in his city. The mayor didn't enter a plea in court since he's been charged with a misdemeanor, which doesn't require a plea. He is likely to go to trial in July.
Today, USA versus Ras Baraka just begun a status hearing to talk about me trespassing on property which we believe is not federal property. But because we're just trying to make a private company follow the laws that we've established here in the city of Newark in the state of New Jersey. And because they believe that they're above those laws, that they can in fact subvert them and do what they want to do without having any accountability or transparency. We believe that I was targeted in this. I was the only person arrested. I was the only person identified. I was the only person, they put in a cell. So the only person that was in cuffs and the only person that's here this morning going through this humiliation for these people.
So that was the update today, that he had to appear in a federal court and get his fingerprints and all that done. And for those of you who don't know, he did appear at a protest when the facility first opened, and several congresspeople went there to inspect the facility. apparently that specific facility is missing permits and this and that, and he wanted to join. They rejected him, so he backed off and joined the protest, and he was arrested for trespassing, even though he wasn't trespassing, or at least that's my understanding of the situation, because of course I wasn't there. That he was on public property, and he had the right to be there to assemble to protest, and they arrested him for trespassing. When we were there on Tuesday, everyone was very peaceful. We weren't even really making any noise. Media was there. I would actually say media was probably making more noise or getting more in the way than the actual protesters, and they were very open to conversation and speaking to people, and it was very, really heavily guarded. I understand that when he was there, the mayor, it got incredibly heated. So the two situations are different. But what is your take? I think it was an unjust arrest, and it was violating his First Amendment rights for sure.
Yes, Lana, I absolutely agree. He should not have been arrested. He was let in, and all he wanted to do is go inside the actual facility, and that it was at that point that he was arrested. You're right. I mean, it's well, he's right. There were two congresswomen, McIver and Watson Coleman, and they were not arrested. I mean, and I think that my view on that is that they decided to arrest Mayor Ras Baraka, who's also the gubernatorial candidate on the Democratic side, because I think that for them he was a low-hanging fruit. I mean, why didn't they arrest any of the two members of Congress? I think if they had done that, that would have sparked even more outrage. So I think that for them it was Mayor Ras Baraka was a safer pick because he was in the same area that they were. I certainly don't believe that he should have been arrested. Trespassing is not trespassing when you're let in. How can anyone say that you're trespassing? He did wanted to come in and inspect the facility, if you will, and he was turned down, but that should have been the end of that. There was no need to arrest him, so he should not have been arrested.
Because judging by the gates and the guards that were there when we were there on Tuesday, you can't trespass. You can't do it without hurting yourself, or because there's barbed wire, there's all these guards, like armed, very, very armed guards. There's like there's cars in front. Like, he couldn't have trespassed if he wanted to. So if he was let in, which I didn't know that part, but if he was let in, then that's definitely not trespassing. And even if he was denied and he just fell back and started protesting with the others, that's still not trespassing, because we were just there on Tuesday, and there's a lot of public property right in front. There's a sidewalk, the street, whatever. So it definitely was just a show of force. And unfortunately, a lot of the commentary of just normal folk, or that I had someone say that he should be deported because he broke the law. And I'm just like, are we really creating this culture of just like, you break the law, you get deported to El Salvador? What is that? And people mean it, and that's why these conversations are important to have, because just because you break the law doesn't mean that you need to be deported, especially as an American citizen. So apparently his trial is or his hearing is in a couple months, but yeah, that was a crazy situation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. She should not have been arrested. Now, I know that there were threats done in the past about arresting mayors and members of Congress, and that just so totally unnecessary. I mean, the reality is that the Congresswomen McIver and Watson Coleman, I mean, they were not interfering with the whatever ICE was doing. So there was no call for arresting any of them. Now, I do think that this incident, certainly, I think is going to help Ras Baraka in terms of the Democratic primary. I'm sure he was giving interviews. He was. More people certainly are aware of what happened. So I'm sure it's I wish
he is kind of being turned into a hero.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely going to help his campaign. So I'm sure he's not necessarily unhappy as far as the silver lining is concerned with that situation.
Sure. They still, of course, should not have arrested him. Yeah, it's very. I'm also concerned. I'm glad he was released, of course. But I that actually goes back to when people talk about their attitude towards this. My own personal, if I can go back to my position on immigration quickly. I'm somebody who, and talking about making it easier for people to come to this country. I came to the United States under the Lautenberg Amendment, which allowed people who were ethnically Jewish, who were living in the then Soviet Union, to give a preference when it comes to being able to come to the United States. And had I been from a different ethnicity, had I lived in a different country, I would not have been. My parents would not have been given that preference. And I just don't think it's fair that I was able to come to this country, to the United States, and enjoy the fruits of everything that this country and the people have to offer. And meanwhile, others who, in the past, I remember living in Haiti could not come to the United States because they were not, from a communist country. Meanwhile, people from Cuba were allowed to come in and they became refugees. So I think our, immigration system, unfortunately, there is definitely racism involved. I mean, I'm going to say it out loud. And I don't think individuals should be given preference based on their ethnicity, personally, and based on what country they come from. It really shouldn't be that way.
Right.
This is why I honestly think that everyone should be given an equal opportunity to come to this country. If somebody wants to hire people and from whatever they want, like I said, they should be able to come in. You don't have to have tax dollars being used to provide any kind of housing. That's going to be done by private organizations through private donations. And we've had groups like that. I think Nayana is one of the organizations that provided money for people who were ethnically Jewish coming to the United States years ago. And I know there were other groups that were in the past that have provided funding as well. So it doesn't have to, like I said, have to be done through government.
Right. I mean, the government's involvement should be absolutely neutral. They shouldn't be paying for people to come here, and they shouldn't be preventing them from coming here. But to your point about being racist, the first law controlling the flow of immigration was to try and keep Chinese immigrants out.
Yeah.
So it started as a racist regulatory intervention, and it continues to be that way, because now we're talking about the white South Africans, that all these people that are pro deportations and pro enforcing the border in the way that they want to are supportive of the white South Africans because of the claims that they're being racially profiled or persecuted in their country. So they're coming here to escape that. Okay, but then what about everybody else? So yeah, there's definitely a race, very obvious tone to this whole conversation, and even culturally. You talk about how they didn't allow people from communist countries to come here because they're afraid that they would come here and influence politics. And we talk about that when it comes to Muslim immigrants, that if we allow too many of them into the country, they'll influence the culture too much, and all of a sudden, 10, 20 years down the road, will become a Islamic country. So it all stems from racism, for sure.
No, I totally agree. And of course, with the Chinese Exclusion Act, this is the time when the Supreme Court, even though they acknowledge that there's no word immigration in the Constitution, they still felt it was necessary for Congress to restrict immigration based on race. The good thing is that, of course, up until Lyndon Johnson administration, there were quotas, and 1965, I believe, was that when we did get rid of. I mean, the federal government did get rid of quotas. On the other hand, what that also meant was that coming to the United States legally could only have been done through one of just 2 or 3 ways. Like I said, either through relatives or through work visas. And I just don't think, and the number of work visas, of course, are very limited. And so that's, there's a lottery where, if you win a lottery, you can, then you can come. Yeah, I think that this whole process needs to be streamlined. I believe the federal government only offers up to 4,000 work visas for unskilled workers, and that's 4,000 is a very low number, and so there's a high demand for unskilled workers, of course, in the United
Right, but
States.
then there's also the problem of being able to define what a skilled and unskilled worker
Right.
is, and then you get into extremely elitist conversations about intelligence and IQ and all these things, and what jobs are more important than others. And talking about the interpretation of the Constitution, when you bring up or at least in my experience, when I bring up the fact that immigration is not in the Constitution, they say, well, it's in the Constitution, and I forget the exact wording, that it's the job of the federal government to protect the borders, right? And because they've been using language like invader, right, or rapist or murder or any of these things to refer to immigrants, then it makes people feel like the federal government is protecting us from these people because they are invaders, they're here to do harm. And that's why it's very important that the words that you use to describe people, right, they're being called invaders as opposed to just people who want to live here, or just immigrants or undocumented people. Because when you start using the word invaders, well, then it feels like the federal government should come in, step in, and defend the border of the country. But that's not the case. Obviously, it's just propaganda.
Well, yeah, Lana, I absolutely agree with you, and of course, that would also imply that the ancestors of the people that are here, unless they're Native American or African American, well, they came here by choice. That means that they were invaders, which is ridiculous. I mean, the idea that people think, oh, my great was an invader. I don't think anyone thinks that way. Right, my ancestors who came here in the early 1900s or the 1800s were invaders. I don't think any of the people that actually support these deportations are thinking of their ancestors as invaders. So that whole concept, of course, is ridiculous.
No, but they use the word conqueror, but in a positive way. They conquered the country, right? They did essentially take the country from the Native Americans.
Right.
But I guess there's a difference between conqueror and invader.
Right. The word invasion implies, yes, the word invasion implies a military invasion, of course, by foreign army. It has nothing to do with people trying to come to the United States. And the idea that, like I said, that their ancestors were invaders, and did they come here with weapons and try to take over the country, sent by a foreign army. They were part of the foreign army. Of course, that's totally ridiculous. This just goes. I agree with you, Lana. It just goes to the length that people would go to try to justify the policies that they support. Policies that, like I said, have made such a huge mess. The MS-13. People talk about MS-13. MS-13 was a small gang in the United States until the United States government deported it to Central America, where it grew its size, and boomerang back to the United States and grew in size thanks to the federal war on drugs. This is how it gets its money. So instead of actually dealing with this issue, and instead of like, oh well, I don't know, let's just take the profit motive out of these guys, the best thing that these public officials have come up with is, well, let's deport them again. Well, didn't you guys, didn't that not work the last time around? That now you have a much bigger MS-13, and you're just going to do this again? The reality, of course, with gang members is that these kinds of threats don't work. There was one person, I believe, he was giving a presentation years ago. It's like, why do people join gangs? And it's because of this belief that you can be that top gang leader, right, wearing a chain around your neck, right, and having millions and millions of dollars. Of course, very few people would get to that level, and most of the people would die before ever getting there. But that is the kind of thinking that goes into like, well, I want to be that person. This is why, even though many of them end up getting killed, this is not stopping any of them. So the idea that if you deport them or you give them, higher, stiffer sentences, that this is going to somehow stop them is totally nonsensical, and it's not based on any type of history. So instead of taking trying to take the profit motive from them, saying, well, we'll just deport, we'll do more of what didn't work in the first place. So very, like I said, if you look at the number of undocumented immigrants, most of them have not really committed any kind of violent crime, and the statistics does bear that out. So all of this is just very much reminds me of some of the hatred that was where the immigrants that were coming from Italy, Poland, other countries were being targeted over a century ago, and where people were calling them murderers and criminals and all kinds of stuff. This is very similar to what we've heard and seen in the early 1900s.
Yeah. So Dustin is joined. Hi, Dustin.
Hello.
Dustin is running for District 8, which is in South Jersey, somewhere in South Jersey. No one knows where in South Jersey. So, Dustin, why don't you update us on your campaign and where District 8 is? Because a lot of people they kind of ignore South Jersey.
Okay, so District 8 is essentially in the middle of the Pine Barrens. It encompasses pretty much all of Burlington County, a small, tiny section of Ocean, and a small, tiny section of Atlantic County, mostly just Hamilton. So far, we're doing pretty good. The campaign's going well. We're getting good traction. There's a lot of interest. What I found is that people here are kind of fed up with New Jersey politics in general. So what I'm trying to do is actually offer representation from South Jersey rather than being tied up into just the regular New Jersey political scene like we see time and time again. Really good traction. It's being well received. I'm in Pemberton, and I was very surprised with how many people actually resonate with our platform and some of the things that I actually have to say, because they are a little bit different than what we are seeing from either side in this current election.
And so all three of our platforms are somewhat similar: income tax, zoning laws, making housing more affordable. I know on your platform that you talk about the state forest. So why don't you explain a little bit about that?
So this has been a long fight that's been going on since 2015. The Department of Environmental Protection has been trying to take motorized vehicle access away in Wharton State Forest as a trial, and once they find that to be successful, they intend to implement it elsewhere throughout the state. In the Pine Barrens, it is historically been used for vehicles. The roads that are in Wharton State Forest are actually they actually predate the United States. They were the roads that were used to carry the munitions from the shore that they came ashore at Tuckerton and take them into Philadelphia during the Revolution. So Wharton State Forest, which is in the middle of District 8, it's also the state's largest state forest, is crisscrossed by these very, very old roads. And they don't necessarily belong to the state of New Jersey. They belong to the townships and things that are around them. So since 2015, the Department of Environmental Protection has been trying to shut down vehicle access to those roads. They say motorized vehicle access, but realistically, they've actually taken away access to any users that are not on foot. So that includes bicycles, horses, anything like that. You have to be on foot. And they closed about 125 miles of the roads that have historically been available. It is a very popular activity. The Pine Barrens and using off-road vehicles in the Pine Barrens is a very popular activity. So this is something that's coming from outside of Burlington County, outside of the Pine Barrens, from people who don't necessarily have an interest in what really goes on there. So in November of last year, they actually closed all those roads, implemented extremely excessive fines if you get caught there. And again, keeping in mind that it's not just motorized vehicles, but it's also horses, it's also bicycles, any kind of user that's not on foot. And so they created a situation that took the access away, not only from those users, but hunters that need access to game lands, which is incredibly important for wildlife management. Off-road vehicle users can't go in. Horse users anything like that. There's no continuity, so it's very easy for somebody to enter at a place that is still legal and end up somewhere that's not. We found out that they have placed hidden surveillance cameras that are wirelessly linked throughout the forest. And so when people get trapped in these areas, they're actually being surveilled, and they run the potential of getting tickets or something like that in the mail, actually having police show up at their house, confiscation of their vehicles, impoundment.
Confiscation?
Yes, they are impounding vehicles. So
for being in parts of the forest or the state park that's not allowed.
Correct. Correct. So even if the vehicle is licensed and insured, which has always been a rule, if you get stopped, what they have done is they've decided that since being the state has decided that those roads are no longer legal to use, they are actually ticketing and impounding. So there's one person in particular that was actually hit with some pretty significant fines, and they didn't have the ability. They couldn't get a tow truck back to actually impound his vehicle, so they did let him leave with them. But keeping in mind the vehicle he was on was licensed, insured, it had a license plate, it was a completely street legal vehicle. So it's getting pretty heated. It's not something. We beat this back in 2015. They came back this time with a vengeance and a lot more money coming from somewhere. And this time they've actually managed to succeed. So part of my campaign is I'm trying to, number one, bring awareness to what's going on here. And number two, when I'm elected, I plan to work within the legislature to get these roads back open. They're historically they've been open. There's been very little restriction as to how they could be used, just basic park motorized vehicle rules about speed and where you can and can't go. And, or give back to South Jersey what has always belonged to South Jersey and has always belonged to South Jersey that actually predates the state itself.
Yeah, and Vic, I know you have it on your platform that if you're governor, that you would give that the power of control over the state forest to those municipalities in that area, right?
Yes, that is my position. Yes, county governments, I say, but yeah, definitely should not be under state control.
Mm-hmm. So we did get a question. Let's see.
Oh.
Are any of the major political parties also rallying against these EPA policies?
Yes. There has been some talk from the Republicans in this district, District 8. I believe District 4 also made a statement. Again, it was the Republicans that made a statement. They haven't made any really strong moves with it. Personally, I would like to see something like an audit of the DEP or something like that. But as of right now, there has been statements. A letter was supposed to go out to everyone in District 8, asking them and urging them to contact the DEP again and tell them to open the roads back up. I actually took that and I sent out to all of my followers as well and said, hey, go ahead and do this. There was pretty good interest in that. A lot of people did contact the DEP. What we found through this process, though, and this is going back to last year when they initially did all of the information and what they called the, what was the term for this? I guess, interested parties. They had a big show of it, a big survey and everything like that. They completely disregarded everything that anyone said. So, and closed every bit of the roads anyways. So there is some pushback from the Republicans, nothing from Democrats whatsoever. And the majority of it has come from District 8 itself. It hasn't come from anywhere else.
So we only have about 10 minutes, but I do want to talk about Toms River and the eminent domain situation because those events are coming up. So let me just play this video so everybody that's watching can understand what it is that we're talking about.
In a New Jersey town and a church, officials in Toms River are trying to buy the church to put a park there. Nick Calloway reports that the town is ready to take the land if needed.
There are about 5,000 households within walking distance of the church, and it'll make for an excellent park.
Mayor Dan Roderick shows us the plans for that park. It includes a playground and pickleball courts.
This would provide a tremendous amount of recreational opportunities for thousands upon thousands of residents.
But there's one problem. Christ Episcopal Church on Washington Street is not for sale. Still, the town council took the first step to either buy the 10-acre property or seize it via eminent domain. The issue attracted a raucous crowd to last week's council meeting.
This sounds a lot like anti-Christian bias to me.
The church recently tried to open a homeless shelter here on the property. It regularly hosts groups like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous.
They have meetings here 7 days a week.
We met Marlene Roddy on her way into a meeting at Christ Episcopal. She says she's been in recovery for 30 plus years.
It's beneficial to the community because it offers hope and support. We need support when we're getting clean.
The bishop for the Episcopal Diocese of New Jersey told us in a statement, quote, "As a Christian leader and a resident of New Jersey, I am troubled by the township's move to block the faithful ministry of Christ Church, and I am saddened that the mayor and township council are prioritizing pickleball courts over responding to hunger and homelessness."
I am optimistic that we could come to some sort of resolution in the open market.
In Toms River, New Jersey, Nick Calloway, CBS News, New York.
Okay, so I already have a million things to say because this sort of situation really just gets me heated. So my understanding is there are two separate situations. The church is wanting to build a homeless shelter, and according to zoning laws, we talk about zoning laws, they can't. They're not zoned for building a shelter for, I think, 7 or 9 people. I don't remember exactly. So it's not like this huge homeless shelter that's going to be like this eyesore or anything. And then separate from that, the mayor wants to he wants to buy the land, but it's not for sale. So he's going to take the land and build a pickleball court, which he thinks is more beneficial to the community than a church that is also hosting all these meetings. And what I find really funny is that at the end of the video, he says, "I think we can come to a resolution in the open market." Okay, you tried the open market. You tried to purchase it from them. They said it's not for sale. And now you want to use the power of the state basically to take it from them. So the whole thing is absolutely insane to me.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Lana, and thank you for bringing more light to this issue for those people who are not familiar with it. I can tell you for myself, years ago, I also was opposed to the use of eminent domain years ago to condemn a Cornell dairy farm in Piscataway, New Jersey. I was in my at the time, I think it was 19, 20 years old, and I just felt that it was wrong for the municipality, for the local government to condemn, use the power of eminent domain to condemn the property. And I even went to as far as to go to the council meeting, and I had an exchange with the council president. It was very sad for me to see what that local government was trying to do. They were arguing, well, the family's trying to sell the property, and we rather have them sell it to us. And at the end, the family did lose the property, sadly. So they did lose it. But I just want to say that this is something that I feel very strongly about. As far as eminent domain is concerned, my view is that if someone doesn't want to sell their property, that should be the end of that. Like there's no justification for condemning the property for refusing to sell it. I think in the United States, for many decades, for centuries, we believed in the proposition that my home is my castle, right? In recent decades, we've had lots of eminent domain abuse. We've had property being used for commercial purposes, private property, and for other means. So I find this actually absolutely abhorrent. Because here you have Christians who are trying to help people who are homeless, people who are hungry, and you have the mayor wanting to condemn a property of a church. I mean, this is absolutely horrific. I can't even describe just how outrageous I feel about this. This is absolutely horrible. And so I hope this doesn't happen, because I can't imagine that, you have people, there are Christians who feel that it's, a Christian thing to do, of course, to help out the homeless, help out the hungry, and the mayor is targeting them. But my understanding is he doesn't like the homeless people. Well, that's just too bad.
They exist.
They exist, and they want help, and these church members, they're doing the right Christian thing by using their compassion and using their hearts to help them. And I just find it absolutely horrible that you have the mayor who seems to be completely blind and not willing to hear what the Christians in this church, and not just Christians, are calling for, is to end to this to these plans to go after this church. I mean, I find it absolutely horrible. When I found out about it, I was just absolutely outraged at this.
Yeah, and earlier we were talking about, or at least I was talking. I bring this up all the time. This I make fun of myself, but that people want the government to fix everything, and we tell them, no. There are charitable organizations, there are private individuals that are willing to spend their own money, their own resources, their own property to help people, instead of it filtering through the government, taking your money, and then them deciding how it's supposed to help people. So here's this church who's doing exactly that. They're a charitable organization that, through their nations and volunteer power, want to help the homeless people or unhoused people in that area, people who are struggling with addiction, people that need help. And here's the government coming in and basically attempting to prevent that from happening. So what solutions do these people have? What is the mayor offering to these people? Are they saying, okay, instead of, if I take this church and turning it into a pickleball court, which is just outrageous to me, here is the other solution that you can go to fill in the gap that they had. And I don't understand why people are okay with it. We were talking about zoning laws earlier, and when you and I are collecting signatures, or I'm collecting signatures for myself, when we talk about zoning laws, a lot of people are afraid that, for example, when we talk about legalizing tiny homes, that tiny homes would just randomly pop up in the street. You were there for that conversation I had with that lady, where she was like, so tents would just be in the street and in parks and stuff. They're afraid of these tent cities and these this like imaginary danger that people think exists with homeless people or unhoused people. But the truth is that what we're talking about is you owning private property, and then you getting to decide what to do with it. So if you want to build a homeless shelter, or you want to live in a tent, or you want to live in a tiny home, or you want to live in a trailer, you should be able to. But unfortunately, you have these people that is, NIMBY people, none of my backyard people, that just don't want something that they feel is unsightly. And a lot of these people, including the mayor, seem to just not like homeless people, and they don't want to deal with them. They don't want them in their town, and this is their way of getting rid of it. Instead of actually solving the issue, coming up with a solution that helps everyone, they just basically want to kick them out through the use of state force.
One thing I've wondered, and I haven't found any evidence of, is the Council of Toms River doing anything about the cost of housing. In South Jersey, there was a large migration of people from north and from kind of the cities and stuff. They kind of moved down here, and for a while it caused a housing shortage. With a housing shortage, you end up with higher prices. And so nothing's been done as far as trying to get the cost of housing down. They haven't addressed any of the regulations. They haven't addressed any of the taxes. We all live in New Jersey. We know that property taxes are astronomical here, and they make up a huge portion of what somebody would pay for rent. So it's unrealistic to expect somebody to pay $3,000 for a 1 or a 2 bedroom house somewhere like Toms River, simply because that's what's happened. And they haven't done anything. That's what's caused so many displaced people. Where I'm at in Pemberton, we have a fairly large homeless population too. And it's for the exact same reasons. It's expensive to live here. We're stuck next to a military base, and the taxes just make it astronomical if you don't already own a house and weren't fortunate enough to buy one, say maybe 10 years ago. And there's no excuse for a town like Pemberton or Toms River to have a homeless population the size that it does. There's none whatsoever. This is the sort of thing that you would see maybe in a major city, but it's not. And it's in the middle of South Jersey. It's in the middle of the Pines. This is supposed to be affordable, and they haven't done anything to make living here affordable at all. If anything, they've made it worse. They've raised taxes and they've created more regulations. As things like homeless people start to appear, they create more laws to try to make people feel like they're safer. And that just drives up the cost of living even more. And they have not addressed that, not once.
Quick comment before we get to the question from the audience. I also want to say that, Lana, as you were saying before, this is about, church not using tax dollars to try to, provide shelter for the homeless. So if the mayor doesn't like homeless people, using tax dollars to quote unquote help them, if you will, here you have the, church members offering to provide housing, free of any use of tax dollars to the homeless. I mean, I would think that the people that don't want the homeless, don't want the government to use tax dollars to help the homeless would be more than happy about the, members of the church offering help to the homeless, but you clearly don't see that. So I just find that quite unfortunate. And you're right. This is actually something that I would advocate myself as a libertarian, is not using tax dollars to help those who are needy. Mm-hmm.
We have a church willing to do it.
Yeah, there you go.
So the question is, are there any steps high schoolers can take to combat abuse of power? So this is true of anyone, because people don't realize how much power they have when it comes to politics and influencing policy, is making noise. For example, at Toms River, the people of Toms River have shown up to these meetings, and they continue to show up. They're holding rallies. They're actually holding, I don't think they're calling it a rally, but a rally for unhoused people this Saturday. I plan to be there, mostly because I can't be there on the 28th for the meeting. But showing up to these things, making it known that you're paying attention to what these council people and these state representatives are doing, and what they're voting on, and the power that they're abusing, and educating other people, and also supporting candidates that are wanting to fix things and remove that power, so it's not even there to abuse, right?
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that, Lana. And of course, I think at a high school level too, just making other people aware. But I think, when I was in college, I was trying to talk to other people, let them know what was happening. And a lot of the people, some of them, a lot of them were not even aware that this was happening. And, regarding the proposal to use eminent domain to condemn a farm. And there were people who just didn't think it was possible that this could be happening in America. And, unfortunately for a number of people, until it happens to them, they may not realize how, what the danger is and what the threat is until it happens to them. So I think just talking to other people and making other people aware of it, actually, if one is a high school student, definitely, more than one should be more than welcome, hopefully, to talk to adults about it, and hopefully the adults will spread that information to other people. I mean, I think the fact that you have high school students and middle school students and students of that age being as politically aware as they are of what is going on around, this is something that one as a high school student can certainly let their friends know, and the idea is hopefully would get to the adults, and hopefully with enough pressure, something can be done about the abuse of power.
Yeah, and to your point of people only really caring when it happens to them, it's not just about making people aware, but also why it's bad. For example, if a zoning law is preventing someone from doing something that you don't like, you might not do anything about it, But once that zoning law now comes into you and you can't build what you want to build, then you suddenly care about it. But you should care about both, right? You should care that the zoning law or whatever it is that we're talking about exists in the first place to prevent someone from doing something they should have the right to do. They do have the right to do. So it's like Vic's slogan. It is about freedom and empathy. Is empathy for people having the freedom to do what they want to do, even if you wouldn't make that same choice. And that's something that it's really hard for people to kind of grasp.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And empathy it's also about, I think, the idea that when it comes to helping those who are needy and helping those who are in need, very often the programs that the government uses the tax dollars to spend the money on doesn't really help those who are needy. Then a lot of that money goes for the administration, and much of that money doesn't reach the people that really need help. Which is why I do think that organizations, the private organizations, that have proven that they are effective. I think that they can be better equipped to deliver that assistance. And I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but I do believe that with private organizations, that when it comes to donations, people can pick and choose which are the ones that are successful, which are the ones that are honest, and choose to donate based on that. And I honestly think if there was no state income tax and some of these other taxes, more people would be able to donate because they would have more money in their pocket to give it to the charity organizations, give it to the private organizations that they feel would deliver the most help. So I think that my proposal to repeal the state income tax within the 3 years, I think that would benefit the private organizations that are trying to help out the needy. Sorry, you're on mute. Oh.
Sorry about that. And I've had so many people say that, when you ask to donate to something, whether it's a charity or this happened a lot with first responders, firefighters, EMT, they'll say, well, my taxes pay for that, so why am I donating more money? They don't realize that the way they spread taxes is very inefficient. And yes, like you said, you could potentially actually get more resources if you were actually just asking people directly, instead of it filtering through 4 different things through the state.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, even with all the taxes that are being collected and people pay, there's still so many people give money to charities. We know when there's a disaster or somebody needs an emergency operation, and people raise money through GoFundMe. Yeah, unfortunately, there are people who we've heard who commit fraud. But the fact that so many people can do donate, even with all the taxes that are being collected from them, I can only imagine how much more money people would give to those who are needy if they did not have to pay those taxes, like this state income tax. But the response that you referred to, Lana, really reminds me of one of the lines from Ebenezer Scrooge from the Christmas Carol, right? Because he was talking about aren't the taxes already being collected when he was being asked to donate, and that is true, because a lot of people do assume that people who are needy are being taken care of, and that's clearly the fact that we have so many homeless people and clearly shows that that's obviously not the case.
Yeah, you want to talk about funds being fraudulently used. I mean, our taxes are definitely fraudulently used and used to maintain power and used to fund elections.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you watched a couple of days ago, there was a 60 Minutes episode on fraud that exists right now when it comes to the federal government. And not just the federal government, billions of, I think $1 trillion is being basically, I think the fraud goes over $1 trillion per year, where people, they steal the identity of other people, and when there's a false identity, they steal other people's identity to apply for financial aid. And then you have people who had their houses burned down, and then they try to apply for aid, and they realize that somebody else has stolen their identity. And that's a type of fraud that you don't hear from people like Elon Musk, because they're not dealing with that. That's a serious issue. I mean, you have people stealing others' identity. Whenever there is any kind of a disaster or fire, you have people that are they zone in on that area, and then what they do is that they steal the identity of people, and they try to, they apply for financial assistance. And meanwhile, people who are looking for that assistance, who have their houses destroyed, etc., they cannot get their aid, that assistance. So that's an issue that I don't hear Elon Musk dealing with or talking about, and that's an actual fraud. Right.
Elon Musk has left the chat. The last I heard, he has
yes. Well, that's
abandoned his career stint in politics, apparently. So, anyways, we are over an hour. So the last thing that I want you guys to say is just an upcoming event. I know we all have events coming up. To just plug that in. So I'll go first. So I will be collecting signatures for myself in Hopatcong on Saturday. And I need volunteers because that is the same day that I will be helping Vic and Dustin with their tabling opportunities. So if you are near Hopatcong, I will need help that day, and I can train you, prep you tomorrow. And then May 31st, I will have a table or a booth in Sparta at the Sparta Day Festival. So you can find my booth there and help collect signatures and kind of spread the word. So go ahead, Vic.
Yes, and I will be on Saturday. I will be present at the Woodbridge Street Fair on Saturday, May 17th, between the Main Street and the Amboy Avenue from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And also on Sunday, I'll be at the Maplewood Street Fair, have a booth there between the Springfield and Rutgers Street, again from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that is my plan for this weekend. Woodbridge Street Fair on Saturday and the Maplewood Street Fair on Sunday. So that's where we'll be this weekend. And also definitely, Lana, trying to help you as well in your campaign, of course.
Yeah, so you've been helping all the candidates because the signature gathering is a lot of work. I don't think people realize how much work it is just to get on the ballot, but that is a topic for another day. So Dustin, go ahead.
Okay, so this Saturday I will be in Columbus at the Columbus Market. We actually have a tabling event there. Extremely large outdoor market, attracts many thousands of people. So if you haven't been there before, I highly recommend checking it out. Weather permitting, and potentially Sunday as well. We'll see. The 31st, there is a large car show, very popular car show in Mount Holly. So I am actually going to be entering my car there as a good excuse to stop everyone that comes by and sign my petition. So again, any of the street festivals in Mount Holly are great. So if you get a chance, come out. That's between 12 and 4 on the Saturday, the 31st. We will be there.
Great. So if you guys, anyone listening in wants to help gather petitions, you can contact the individual candidates, or you can go to njlp.org and download a petition and just start right away, start gathering signatures. You can always ask if you're not really sure how it works. I do try to host how to gather signature Zoom meetings to try and train everybody. And if you want to support the individual campaigns with other funds or other ways, our website links are at the bottom there, or you can find them at njlp.org. You can also donate to the state fund with the party, and those funds will go directly to the statewide candidates for promoting or other things, ballot access, etc. But other than that, we will see you next Thursday at 6:30. Bye, everybody.
Good night.